Off with the latest from Russia. President Vladimir Putin's staunchest critic, Alexey Navalny, has been sent to prison for 3.5 years. A Moscow court found him guilty of violating the terms of his probation while he was in Germany recovering from a poisoning attack. The money laundering case dates back to 2014. Navalny calls it politically motivated. He insists that due process was crudely violated during his arrest and describes the decision as travesty of justice. The hearing was attended by Navalny's wife, Yulia Navalny, and several supporters. Navalny made a heart gesture as he stood in the defendant's cage. In a fiery speech to the court, the Russian opposition leader said that he was jailed because of Putin's concern about him as a political rival. The Kremlin refers to Navalny as a troublemaker without popular support. Reports say Navalny could be heard mocking Putin during the hearing. Navalny's lawyers have said that they will be appealing against the ruling. One of the lawyers, in fact, said that he would spend only 2 years and 8 months in jail because of time that he has already spent under house arrest.
We are going to appeal and we are going to advise Committee of Ministers of European Council, which handles with and monitors the execution of verdicts of the European Court of Human Rights, that Russia did not execute the European Court's rulings. As far as I understand, and according to some explanations from them in internet, they wanted to attend the court hearing themselves to observe if rights were kept and to see how everything goes.
Navalny's allies called for his supporters to protest against the ruling. Protesters took to the streets soon after the verdict was announced. They gathered on St. Petersburg Main Avenue in central Moscow. Helmeted riot police personnel could be seen grabbing the demonstrators and putting them inside police vehicles. Russian police have detained more than 1,400 protesters at this point. Authorities had arrested Navalny as he arrived from Germany after recovering from a poisoning attack. His supporters have been staging mass protests since then. Remember, Alexey Navalny had blamed the Russian President Vladimir Putin for this poisoning attack. On Monday, a Moscow court ordered Yulia Navalny, Alexey Navalny's wife, to pay a fine of 20,000 rubles. That is when she was accused of violating protest regulations after she attended a demonstration in Moscow. Navalny joined the protest despite unprecedented security measures put in place, and she was quickly detained. The U.S. State Department has said that they are reviewing what actions can be taken in response to the sentencing of Navalny.
We are going to look very carefully at the deteriorating human rights situation in Russia, what has happened with Mr. Navalny specifically, what has happened with the mass detentions of those who have bravely taken to the streets in the aftermath of Mr. Navalny's arrest. And of course, all of that we will account for in determining an appropriate policy course.
Fred Weir joining us from Moscow to share his perspectives. Hi, Fred. Thanks for sharing your time. What next for Alexey Navalny? Where do things go from here for him and the Russian opposition movement? Do we expect this to ignite further protests?
It almost certainly will. The first thing I think needs to be said is that this should not be regarded as a legal matter, an exercise in justice that might have had something to do with rule of law. What we've seen is basically a power play. The Kremlin has decided that the challenge Navalny poses needs to be dealt with a heavy hand, and the court is just a stage, a theater in which that was played out yesterday. Whether or not it will lead to further problems, further protests. I'm sure it will lead to further protests. But if you view it as a power play, at least at this point, it is not working in Navalny's favor. He didn't bring out enough people into the streets. I'm sorry, they were very brave people who were very passionate, and so on. There just would have had to be several magnitudes more of them to have made a difference, or would have had to have a situation where there is a crisis of leadership or of power at the top. Neither of those conditions apply. So Navalny will go to prison now, probably for 2.8 years or whatever it is. And I think the Kremlin is hoping that the whole issue will die down.
Right. The U.S. State Department at this point says that they are reviewing what actions can be taken in response to Navalny's sentencing. But what even are the options in your view?
I think that Western countries should dial it back. I don't mean change their principles or accept what has happened. But the problem here for Navalny, which is quite different from, say, the Soviet era when you would have a dissident like Sakharov, who was universally respected by the Russian people. Navalny's numbers are about 20% approval and over 50% disapproval. That just happens to be the way the Russian public breaks, according to the latest Levada poll. And therefore, for Western countries to be so much in your face, showing their support for Navalny, works against him. The 12 Western diplomats in the courtroom yesterday, all that gets massive play on Russian state TV because it works for the Russian state, for their assertion that Navalny is a foreign agent. So if I were advising the U.S. State Department, I would say just dial that back.
Leaving it there for the moment, Fred, thanks very much once again for sharing those perspectives. The Indian government has reacted to foreign celebrities' comments on the ongoing farmer protests in India.